Air. How can you help with air? Stop spraying stuff. Aerosol sprays and pesticides. I had a great conversation with Paul Ebert, who is been for 50 years now working on insects. He's an entomologist and a geneticist on staff at the University of Guelph. He's documented about 5,000 species of insects in his suburban Ontario backyard. He's someplace between Toronto and Guelph, Sonia. I didn't ask him. But in his brother's yard in Toronto, he's documented 1,500 species of insects. We're just talking insects. We're not even adding in the worms and the fungus and the bacteria and all those other things there. It's what's way down everywhere, he says, is even in very rural areas, is insect biomass. Numbers of insects are down. As that falls, birds and other insectivores numbers fall, and we're going to lose a lot of species in this century. We are going to lose species because people are spraying and sprays don't stay in one place. Just this week, I didn't put it in our garden, but just this week, I ran after the neighbor's um, lawn person and said, "What are you applying?" "I'm applying a granular fertilizer, a pre-emergent, and a herbicide." I said, "Then you stay well away from this side. Last year, you cost us $400 in plants where your stuff drifted, and there's definitely more than an 8-mile-an-hour wind today. It's happening everywhere. Step in to control pests only when you must, when it becomes a matter of the plant's going to make it or not. And we use cultural and biological controls and then target narrowly with biodegradable chemicals. So for instance, four-line plant bug looks bad, does not kill the plant, and you can squish the bugs. It makes those little pock marks on the new leaves. Scale insects generally work in cycles. You'll see a lot of scale insects and pale leaves on your oak, and then 2 years later, there aren't any. Why? Well, birds come and eat them. Predators move in on them. Scale. They're ugly things, and they're sucking on the plant, but the plants are able to handle this. You're on a milkweed and you got a milkweed bug. Don't worry about them. They tend to be large numbers of them. On hollyhock caterpillars, these are what chickadees and goldfinches are looking for. Some of the insects that are out there, actually the majority of the types of insects that are out there are beneficial or neutral. This is leafcutter bee carving out little pieces to use in its cells that it lays its eggs in. What cultural controls are that you use instead of using spraying pesticides. Cultural includes using resistant plants, pruning, removing things that are pest damaged, or improving the growing conditions. Biological controls are introducing or attracting predators, and narrow targeting means applied only to what matters. Mites, you don't have to use a miticide. Water works on mites. Clean your plants off. Botrytis on a peony, pruning takes care of that. Bacterial leaf spot on delphinium, or in this case, monkshood. See the blisters on the underside of the leaf and then the dead leaves afterwards. This is a good reason to take the plant out, get rid of that. You can compost it. Hot compost it will kill it. So send it off to the compost yard, really hot compost. But that disease has gotten all the way down into the root. It's time for you to say, I'm going to get rid of that plant. Bacterial problems. This is crown gall on euonymus, which can get onto a rose. Here it is on a rose. Something like that. You say, okay, I got to get rid of that plant. That plant is susceptible to it, and I have to change my culture. I have to prune with dry pruners, not on a wet day. Iris borers. There are caterpillars inside the iris roots. That's why you divide irises in July, because then they're in the roots and you can find the soft spots and get rid of them. People freak out over big numbers of caterpillars, like tent caterpillars, but this is what birds need. A pair of chickadees, a mated pair of chickadees need over 300 caterpillars a day to feed their brood. 300 a day. You need to have these things out there. These are sawfly larvae. People think they're caterpillars, but the plant can handle it. It's a pine, and you can knock them off if you want. You can let the birds eat them, or the other predators eat them. There's lots of predators out there waiting to eat them. And if the predator is there, so there's, see the ladybug on the leaf that I'm turning under? There's probably aphids or scales somewhere, and don't worry about it because hear the music from Jaws. Da, 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 da. These ladybugs move through and eat out. They're like a bear with salmon. They grab an aphid, bite out the abdomen, throw the carcass aside, step forward, grab the next aphid. One ladybug can eat 30 aphids a day, no problem. And they eat tiny things that you're not even seeing that haven't hatched out yet. They're eating the eggs of mites and scale. Now, if you want to target things narrowly, then the ladybug you want for aphids or scale. Praying mantis will eat anything, including hummingbirds. That's called a broad spectrum, and you don't want the broader ones as much as you want the narrow ones. Narrow spectrum that's a mealybug destroyer. You can buy them and put them on plants that have mealybug. You can say it looks like mealybug, but it's a mealybug destroyer. Spiders are generalists too. But when you get something that's bad, and we've told you that black vine weevil, an imported Eurasian pest, is a problem because its larvae eat the roots of plants all winter long. If you need to do something about it, go to biological controls before chemical controls. This vine weevil killer is it's a nematode. That's why it's called nemesis. It's actually a living thing, and it'll tell you that this contains 6 million naturally occurring beneficial nematodes, Steinermania crossii. And you're just going to feel like Tinkerbell. You're going to spread this powder on the ground and water it in. There are also oils that you can use. Look for your extension bulletins, and they'll tell you, look, soybean oil works as a fungicide and an insecticide. Systemics are things that you don't want to step up to if you can help it. Provides 6 weeks protection. It goes inside the plant, works from inside the plant, which means everything, the pollen and everything else. These are your last resort things to use. It's easier on the environment too. Because these guys are little. I was cutting down Joe Pye, and one of these little green sweat bees landed on the Joe Pye I just cut down, and I was holding in my hand and crawled into the hollow stem. I said, oh, I'm sorry, go out there in the prairie area. There's so many things, most of them neutral or beneficial, that we want to keep those things out there for the sake of the birds, for the sake of the environment. Plants, trees, and shrubs between vehicles and people, because the foliage can filter the particulate matter. Particulate matter is nasty stuff for us, for other things that breathe with lungs, because the particulate matter gets into our lungs and can actually pass through the membrane and get into the heart. What you want is things to filter that. You want clean air. Remember when the forest fires were burning in Canada and the sunsets were so awesome? That's particulate matter in the air. And we want leaves and plants to filter that out for us. Plant at least one tree for every tree that's removed. If a tree's unsafe, don't debate it. It's got to go. But they must have successors. Plant it well, even if the roots aren't right, is a good thing to do. We know what roots are supposed to look like. So when you plant a new tree, you know they don't look like that. You're going to have to modify those roots. We also can improve our environment by working quietly. Noise pollution doesn't affect just us. Birds and insects need to hear each other talk. They need to know if somebody is above them waiting to swoop down on them. They need to hear the young calling them, and the young need to hear the voice of the parent to learn how to call. Use things that have mufflers on them, and choose electric tools, not gas. Celia Riker spoke with our volunteers at the Waterford Library about her book, Walking Home. She walked the long trail section of the Appalachian Trail, and she said, slow down. As a hiker, I sometimes walked past beauty until I noticed one bright flower or interesting leaf. And once I stopped, saw flowers, contrasting foliage, and interesting rocks that would add to any garden. So take a slow walk in a forest or a meadow. You might find overlooked gems. Slow down with your tools. You don't need to go fast. Look. Things are out there to be seen. But do make a noise in your community. Quietly or otherwise, be a role model. I think most of you are. Recently, we told you in Garden Legacy about Tessa, who showed up and said, as a kid, I saw your garden, and now I want one just like that, and I'm growing one just like that. Renata said, when you are making a noise, she said, my number one advice is about the sharing of garden information on Facebook. The minute you look up anything plant related, your feed is inundated with garden sites, 99% being bad information. That gets shared and goes on ad infinitum. It drives me crazy. It's especially bad when presented as organic solutions. People want to do the right thing, but they take no time to research or make sure the site is reputable. So post only what you have verified with a .edu reference or equivalent and include the plant scientific name plus a link to your source. That's great advice. And we wrote it all out for you because you're the people that other people look up to and they're listening to you. For water, reduce your plastic use. Everything washes down. Everything washes into the water. Everything follows the flow. It ends up out there. We're definitely not going to look at, at depressing pictures of the plastic floating in the ocean, but everything is full of plastic now, even the Arctic Ocean water. It's got plastic particles in there. So anything you can do, small or large, don't plant your plastic tags. Oh, it's one of my bugaboos. Why do people not pull the tags out and get rid of them? Why do they leave them there to degrade in the garden? Why do they use fabric? I think we've all talked about how it doesn't work, but boy, it gets sold by the millions of yards. And when you're buying materials, think about it. If you need to stock your mulch because you only use it a little bit at a time, I can see doing this. Otherwise, buy local, buy bulk, get up 3 yards dumped and spread it out because you're buying local then. There's not shipping, there's not plastic, there's not the energy expended in packaging these things. And know that even the little bit of water that's running around on your yard, save it in a rain garden or by loosening the soil. Water's going to tend, a lot more water is going to soak in going down this hill than that hill. If you do live by a stream or river, like understand that what Doug Tellamy has said, everybody lives in a watershed, everybody, and nobody has the ethical right to destroy the watershed. Cheryl and Pierre recommend that you join a group that gets together on a regular basis to pick up trash. Talk to Lily and Dean. They do that. And grow things along the edge, not lawn, but taller plants that can filter the water filter the water that's running into the lakes and streams. Your gardens are water filtration systems. Your rain gardens, use it all. Plan on using everything that falls into your property. Maybe you can put it into cisterns or rain barrels. Grab that water as it comes by. And if you've got a sprinkler system that you use, ask yourself if the water is being wasted. You're looking at a picture from San Bernardino when we were out there working, but this happens all the time here, and we shouldn't do that. If you're going to have an irrigation system, emitters for just a single plant are better because these kind of problems on plants, on tomatoes, that's generally a water imbalance. Too much water one day, too little the next day. Consider permeable paving. Stephen and I are, and we've been looking into it. Permeable paving, this is permeable concrete. See the water coming through it? This is pavers on top of a bed of rock and with spaces between them. The Detroit Zoo has used permeable pavers in the kids section. Ferndale has put them around some storm drains. I talked to a wonderful person at the United States Geological Survey, Bill Selbig, who was involved in a project in Madison where they used permeable pavement of 3 different kinds, concrete, asphalt, and pavers, studied it, and he says driveways are where it should be used. He said using it where we used it, it has weight limits and speed limits, but the weight limits are way higher. They would be on big semi trucks. They'd be fine for people's houses. We should be using them. There's a lot of driveways and a lot of surface we can cover that way. So Steve and I have been looking into it. The cost per square foot at this point depends on who you talk to, but it's probably going to be about twice as much. So permeable stone pavers are $10 to $30, whereas concrete, plain old concrete, where did it go? There, $8 to $16. And we wanted to do permeable pavement because we have big trees and we don't want to have the new pavement on the new driveway or anything else hurt those tree roots. But we looked at this diagram that Bill Selbig used and said, there's a lot of water going through, but it's going through a very thick layer. If you look here, it's 12 inches of stone underneath it. 4 inches of stone. And Unilock's specifications add up to about 16 inches that has to be excavated. So this is something to be done where you're not underneath trees for new builds. That's a lot of stuff that has to be excavated that'd take out most of the roots of the trees. And we're not about to do that to our big trees. So, but think about it in places where you can use it on walkways, where you can use it on patios. This is at your Missouri Botanic Gardens parking lot. It can be used, it can handle that kind of traffic and weight. But our water, we've got more water here in the Midwest than any place in the world, and we should be taking care of it more.
We are at 10 o'clock now, so I'm not sure if you want to burn through heat or if you want to save that for
No,
another.
I think we can save that for another time. I'm not hearing suggestions from people, but I know that everybody wants to get outside. I certainly do. And
We
I
we do have a couple
anticipate,
questions we can follow up
okay,
with.
and that's what we're going to do we're
Great.
going to do some questions.
Fantastic. So in the pest section, we got questions from Judith and Karen about sawflies. Judith is curious if you would consider spraying for sawflies, which turn hibiscus leaves to waste. Is it worth doing? Is there a more environment-friendly alternative? And Karen is thinking about the columbine sawfly leaf miners. Is this a case that a hard hose spray would work?
At the right
Just
time, yes, a hard hose spray would work. When they're little, you can knock them right down. And when they're down, they can't necessarily find their way back up, and everything in the soil will attack them. So yes, you can knock them down with water. You can also find them, the eggs are actually very visible as little dots on the needles. You can find them and you can just prune out the parts that are there. But on a bigger plant, you can just let them be. Um, you might want to protect a little plant, a young plant that's just getting started. Columbine sawfly is a little bit different. Most people don't notice the columbine sawfly until the sawfly are nearly full grown, because that's when they eat a leaf a piece overnight and suddenly you come out and there's nothing left of your columbine. You need to know that they're there, and the next year start earlier with you can use soap on them. And you know, Sonia, that we were really good with Murphy's oil soap using on various kinds of things. So yes, there are. And if you take a look at our beginning green webinar and our shoot, I've forgotten what we called the one that was biocontrol for pests. You'll
think
find
it's
those
called
things.
biocontrol for pests.
Yeah,
I also maybe it's because it's a tactile fixation, but I'm a fan of putting a pair of gloves on and squish, squish,
pushing them.
squish.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep, yep. All right, we also have a question from Gretchen that I can second this question. She says she once bought a bag of almost powdered diatomaceous earth. It was on sale. I don't think that it's safe to use. Should I take it to hazardous waste? How do you dispose of diatomaceous earth?
Diatomaceous, you're saying diatomaceous earth?
Yeah.
Yeah, diatomaceous earth is ground up marine. There's a marine crustacean called the diatom that if you grind up the shells, it's very sharp material that can irritate the skeleton of an insect that it can kill it and dry it out. And it's not safe to breathe in that stuff, and it can irritate your skin. So it does have an EPA warning on it. I believe that I would take it to a hazardous waste um, disposal, or I would spread it in the garden where it's meant to be used, because once it gets wet, it's going to degrade pretty quickly.
It is used in brewing. It is an isinglass, I believe, as a way of clearing out beer. And so yeah, once you put it in water, it be obviously becomes less of a problem, or in liquid. Okay, and then finally we have from Michelle. What are the products I see advertised now for a glue-like liquid that seals the substance, the space between the pavers?
I have seen that product, and I'm not keen on the appearance. It's a little like um, it's a little like sloppy grout to me in appearance, but it does help keep the material. If you've used the um, mine tailings, slag sand between it, it kind of keeps it together. It's not going to increase the porosity. It's mostly to keep from having the loose material rolling around on the top of your flagstones or pavers.
Okay, and I think that's everything that I have. My apologies if I missed anything. Donna has a question that I don't think is answerable. Why do landscapers who plant trees leave the tags on? I think that is more rhetorical than
It's
an actual.
definitely one of my bugaboos also is tags on plants. But trees, yes, we need to we the in dealing with fire, which we call climate change. Um, Planting a tree, if a tree comes down, another tree, at least one other tree has to get planted, and it has to get planted right because we're losing canopy. I heard another report again this week from the Forestry Service. We are losing tree canopy. Every tree we plant makes a big difference, and every tree that's planted right that can survive is what's going to make the difference for us. So go out there, you guys, and have a good time in your environment. You are the ones that are going to save it. And oh shoot, as Chuck Martin says, Chuck Martin is such a wonderful person. When we hear about global warming, it seems so overwhelming. We believe we are doomed before we even start. What does it matter what we do individually? This can't be our attitude. We need to realize doing nothing is not the solution. Action starts with appreciation, realizing that if we are not part of the solution, we are the problem. Little things do matter. Educating others to see the beauty of our personal gardens, neighborhoods, city, state, nation, world, universe is where it starts. Teaching others why you love our world's beauty is so important. And you are the ambassadors to do that. Definitely. So join us on on this coming Friday, May 9th for Free4All Friday, 7 o'clock in the evening. Look on our website for the link. And our next weekend walkabout is June 7th. We'll have Richard Hawkey from the Chicago Botanic Garden explaining to you how you will know what really is a good garden plant. And he's a wonderful person to tell us that. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Sonia, very much for moderating all of these wonderful people's ideas. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks everyone, and take care. And yeah, do what you can. Doesn't have to be everything.